Thanks very much, Nzinga. Well, European and local equities markets are in the red, although the European markets did open in positive territory. Generally speaking, there are quite a number of bourses which are shut, as you mentioned, in Asia, and also in the United States today. There's President's Day, so markets won't be open there. So there's a little bit of low volume going on around the globe today. The local currency has weakened relative to the US dollar, in line with other emerging markets, and that's obviously because the US dollar has strengthened somewhat. It did that on Friday and continues to power ahead. This week, all eyes are going to be on National Treasury, and it is believed that Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba will be the one delivering that speech on Wednesday, and the question is, where are they going to be able to raise that 50 billion rand of revenue shortfall? It's believed that they will raise VAT and possibly sell some of government assets, but we have to wait and see what they actually do. And in company news, Anglo American Platinum finally, for the first time in many years, decides to give shareholders a dividend. Let's take a look at the indicators. Well, I'm joined by Gary Boyson. He's from Rand Swiss. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good stuff. Global markets, a bit of low volume trade because of a number of bourses being shut, but any key drivers that you're seeing today?
Yeah, so looking at our local market, certainly I think we're seeing still the follow-through rally from last week's optimism. So you're seeing the likes of SA Inc. stocks moving higher. You've got Capitec recovering from that Viceroy report as well. So that was up, one of the top gainers. Fashini also moving up, Mr. Price. So really our retailers, our banks doing fairly well. On the negative side, we've obviously got Naspers, which is a significant portion of our index. And that, I think, as you say, a lot of assets these days are correlated to what's happening to overseas markets, overseas counterparts, and obviously with Hong Kong closed today, we didn't get a price on Tencent, so that means that everyone kind of trades water on Naspers for the day, and that was off just over 2%. And then of course you've also got the golds down fairly heavily, and I think that's mainly a currency story more than anything else.
All right. And then of course this week budget is on the horizon. It's not likely to be as smooth as the SONA, is it?
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting because while there is a lot of optimism in South Africa at the moment, and I think rightly so, it's going to be we're still in a very, very difficult position, and we need to see obviously a stabilization of the fiscus, and I think we've also got the ratings agencies going to be watching this budget very, very closely, especially Moody's with the potential to downgrade us into junk. I think the real, I suppose, focus is going to be the stabilization of our debt and how we're going to achieve that. So, I mean, from our point of view, we do see you mentioned increasing VAT as well, but I mean we also see an increase in taxes on the more wealthy. We don't see a general wealth tax at this stage, however. Of course, sin taxes, I think cigarettes and alcohol and fuel as well are also going to see significant hikes. But certainly we've got there's a lot of money needed, and it's going to be important to see where it comes from.
Look, we're in honeymoon phase in terms of markets and their perception of Cyril Ramaphosa and what he can bring to the party. But when it does come to the budget and the levying of taxes, how do they strike the balance between raising what's needed while not suffocating economic growth?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think what's also going to help a lot is with the optimism that's returned. You're going to see a lot of foreign money flowing into South Africa, coming to invest in South Africa. Also, the stronger exchange rate helps to keep a lid on inflation as well. So that also, I think, from a monetary policy side, you're going to see maybe slightly more suppressed rates, which gives the fiscus perhaps a little bit more room to move. If you look at South African bond yields also coming down, our debt becomes a little bit more sustainable. But absolutely, I mean, it's all key, and I think one is policy policy implementation, but it's also having the right policies. And I think we didn't mention it, but certainly the concept of free education, free tertiary education, how is that going to be rolled out? What kind of implementation is that going to see? And how does the new administration, how is the new administration going to see it? I think that's absolutely going to be critical for ratings agencies and for everyone else.
Now, there's a lot of pressure on Mr. Ramaphosa to go ahead with that cabinet reshuffle, which most people think is inevitable. How sensitive is the market to this possibility?
It's always difficult to say, because when you get an actionable event, you'll always see some sort of movement on the back of it as the risk premium comes out. But markets are also forward-looking, and as we can see with the huge rally that we've had in the rand-dollar exchange rate, for example, bond yields is another place that you can look. A lot of the optimism, I think, is starting to become priced into the South African market, and while a cabinet reshuffle, potentially, could be seen as very positive, putting the country potentially on the right track going forward. Again, financial markets, as you said, are largely expecting this. So I think the movement would rather come if something doesn't happen, or if there's a surprise in the way the cabinet is reshuffled, or the way that I think largely we're expecting basically the size of government to shrink, and that's where the pressure is really coming from. So I suppose on the implementation, it'll depend on what happens, but I think for now mostly priced in.
All right, and just going back to the budget, does it really matter who delivers the budget? Because, there's been a lot of speculation that the finance minister changes, but surely it's the technocrats who write the budget for him anyway.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm not sure how at least the ratings agencies would view it, and market participants. So, I think we do expect the finance minister to be changed. Whether he's changed before the budget or after the budget, I don't think it's going to make too much difference, because, as you say, the budget policy and that statement is written in conjunction with him. But of course, you've got an entire agency below it doing the work. So, I think at this stage it probably doesn't make too much difference if we get a reshuffle. But as we're discussing before the segment, if it hadn't happened by the weekend, I don't think we're going to see a cabinet reshuffle ahead of Wednesday's budget.
Indeed. And let's take a look at one stock, Anglo Platinum. It's gone through a massive phase of rationalization. It's now claiming to be leaner and meaner. It now says that for last year, 2017, its EBITDA, its earnings before interest, depreciation, taxation and amortization, that rose by 32% up to 12 billion rand, and for the first time in ages they're giving shareholders some of the profits, which is great. So what do you think of this particular outfit?
Yeah, it looks like very, very solid numbers. So they've gone through, as you said, a 5-year period where they've really rationalized a lot of assets. They've sold off the Rustenburg operations to Sibanye Stillwater. They've put a lot of shafts on care and maintenance. They've closed the Union mines. They're very much going to focus on Mogalakwena going forward, which is really low cost ounces. And over say the last 5-year period, I mean, estimates are that they've taken out almost 470,000 loss making ounces from the operations. So that helps them to be very sustainable in a low platinum price environment. Looking at the headline numbers as well, headline numbers up 108% in headline earnings. That's within the guided range, so you're not seeing too much of a movement in the stock. I think the stock was up 2.5%, but certainly very, very positive. And the dividend, I think, surprised a lot of people as well. So I see a lot of analysts weren't expecting them to announce, and they've reinstituted a dividend policy where they're going to pay out, I think it's 30% of headline earnings. So
that's right.
Very, very positive all around, and a company that I think has a management team that's put the company on the right track to survive and even thrive in a low platinum price environment, which is important.
Indeed. And then what do you think about the seeming sort of meeting of minds with the new administration, with the mining sector? They've decided to shelve that case that was going to go ahead against the DMR.
Yeah, I think very, very positive as well. So, I mean, if you look at kind of the mining charter in its current form, it was almost undoable. I mean, you could already, speaking to the international mining execs, investment in South Africa had almost ground to a halt, because it wasn't creating a framework and an environment that made us competitive on the international stage. It was much easier to go and look for your ounces elsewhere. I think this is certainly, I mean, there's a long road to walk, but this is a step in the right direction. So I think certainly people are starting to look at South Africa as a more positive and a favourable investment destination. Indeed.
Well, we'll leave it there on that positive note. Thank you very much, Gary. That was Gary Boyson, portfolio manager at Rand Swiss. He seems to be positive about the future. Well, after a short break, Nzinga has more business news for you.